to the top of the hour. We're heading to the SMB on ground, and this time around, the key discussions around, which is the new talk of town, is the rising fuel prices in the country. And as a matter of fact, we've got Andrew Berije, who is live from Kibuli, to at least get us opinions from the public on the matters regarding the rising fuel prices. There is a very huge public decry, as most of the people out there are showing their dissatisfaction with how government is failing, to some allegedly, failing to show how they're going to get through this situation. And that is what we want to understand this Friday morning. What do the people say? Berije Andrew, please, good morning.
Thank you very much, Joram Paul Sonko, and we are right here in Kibuli. And it's quite sunny and cloudy, the weather is and today we want to look at the genesis of the fuel prices, the global fuel prices that have been rising over the last years. We can look at ever since 2010, the fuel prices have always been increasing. There is never a time where we experienced a time where the fuel prices actually declined. Now, for the side of Uganda, most of these prices are largely determined by external factors, whereby as the government, the government of Uganda has limited control over some of these factors that lead to the fuel prices to be where they are. When we take a look back, for example, 2018, whereby the liter of fuel at any petrol station, be it Total, be it Shell, which is V-Power lately, it was 3,800, 3,600, ranging between that range. That was 2018. But 2 years down the road, there has always been an increase due to so many factors. And now in 2020, yes, 2020, that's when we had the prices rise to about 4,000 at all different petrol stations. And the funny thing is that you find that different petrol stations have different rates, probably depending on the amount of fuel that they have in their customer, probably in their reserve, let me say that. So 2020, we had the fuel prices rise between 4,000 actually, 4,100 or 4,300, depending on the petrol stations. But now come 2021, which is really becoming something historical. We've never had such a thing happen in the world like how it's happening lately, where the global crisis, tensions escalated, and we saw the fuel prices rising above 4,500. And surprisingly, in Uganda seems to be having the highest fuel, the most expensive, as compared to the three East African countries. That's Kenya, not three, actually there are more than three. And when you look at Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Sudan, yes, the prices a little bit, they are not really that way. So, for the case of Uganda, I know people are asking themselves so many questions. There are so many petrol stations that are emerging lately, and we thought probably that could lead to a decrease in the prices since there is quite excess, like we call it surplus, but seems like nothing's happening, but the fuel prices keep on rising day by day. And that's the reason why the Ministry of Energy wants to limit licensing the emergence of new petrol stations to control the rate at which they spread, and reason being that some of them are within the city center, which is a little bit dangerous due to so many factors. So right behind me, I'm at Shell right here, and you see the fuel prices. That's 5,940. Wow, that's very, very, very sad. Now, looking at that figures, what does that figure mean to Uganda? Let's get back to the genesis. What could have led to this? Let's start with early this year, something which majority of the world are attributing to the global crisis. That's the Ukraine and the Ukraine-Russia crisis that is taking place even right now as I speak. Now, this is what happened. When Russia invades Ukraine, the country, the global community decides to sanction Russia, And in the process, when Russia is being sanctioned, it also decides that if any country wants to purchase my fuel, you have to buy it in the rubles. You have to convert. For example, if America wants to buy the fuel to import, it has to convert the dollars into the rubles. What does that mean? The ruble gained a more higher value. Again, there's so many international currencies which have been acting as reserve currencies for quite a very long time. Let's talk about the yen. Okay, not the yen, the British pound, the American dollar. You know, so because the ruble was on high demand, it gained so high the value. So meaning these currencies collapsed, and actually the euro declined to the worst. You know, because Europe can only import Russian gas when it converts. And you know what does it mean when these prices, when the global currencies decline in value? That comes back to Uganda. The shilling is also, it gets affected. How? When these currencies go down in value, the central banks of these countries, for example, the European Central Bank, the Federal Reserve Bank, they take aggressive measures to raise the prices. I mean, the interest rates of their currencies. For example, they can raise the currency by about 75 BPS. You know, that's the British. And once the interest rate is heightened, that means when Uganda is importing this fuel, it has to get much more of it will spend more shillings to acquire a foreign currency, be it a British pound, be it an American dollar, which has been hiked by the central bank of those countries. And definitely that means the prices are going to come back to the normal person. Now, let's talk about in Africa. Nigeria, as I'll say, is the country that has actually statistics. It's a fact. It has the lowest fuel price. A liter in Nigeria, there is a certain price. I think I read it was about one. Okay, I've a little bit skipped. Okay, like the figures have skipped my mind, but I will say that there is a certain price the government regulates, whereby if you're a fuel dealer, you don't sell above that price. You know, that policy was introduced. That was 1977. You know, a fuel price subsidy where the government regulates. When you look at our neighbors in East Africa, Kenya, you know, recently when the global crisis tensions escalated, they almost wanted to withdraw these subsidies, but of course it didn't happen. Rwanda's come 2021, when the crisis escalated, they introduced a fuel subsidy to the people right there. So you can see, for Uganda, I don't know whether there are policies that are being set in place to put up some fuel subsidies, because it's getting worse day by day. When you look at the global petrol prices at petroprices.com, globalpetrolprices.com, Uganda is among the countries that actually have the highest fuel prices. And when I talk about the fuel prices, I mean per liter. Okay, lately it's valued at 5,800. Though right behind me, when you check there, it's 5,940 shillings per liter. That's petrol and diesel. So that's how the situation is. The country worldwide currently which has the cheapest fuel, it's Venezuela. Because a liter in Venezuela right now, it's just at 82 shillings. Actually, we need to convert to Ugandan. And the highest country definitely, that's China. That's the city of Hong Kong. A liter in Ugandan money, it's costing 11,100 something. So but that's the figure. But to be exact, it's 11,000 and above. And looks like day by day, the crisis keeps on. And you know, the question is, the crisis is never going to end according to the experts, the political experts. So we shouldn't depend this. It shouldn't be something that is always attributed to. Many governments are trying to find ways to subsidize to their local people, to find ways they can make the fuel prices a little bit affordable to the local natives, because the crisis is all over the world. And that's been the trend in Uganda. There was a time when a liter was costing just 1,700 shillings. That was way back in 2005. You can imagine when a time when you could board a taxi for 500 from any place, like let me say if you stay within the suburbs of town, you could board a taxi, for example, from the taxi park for 500,000. Imagine that, and it's no more right now. Even 1,000 is a little bit tricky and hard to find, such a journey. But you see, that's always been. So there are so many factors. But to mention the few, it could be, actually not it could be, the crisis in the Ukraine And when the crisis in the Ukraine happened, there was an impact on the global currencies that acted as reserve currencies for a very long time. And when they declined the value, definitely the central banks threatened, attempted to raise the interest rates of the currencies. And when those interest rates rise, that means there is a rise in the value of that currency. And it comes back to middle economy countries, low countries like Uganda. They get the effect as a result. And, recently the dollar has been trading at 3,800. All those factors, because we need more foreign currency to purchase this fuel, and life moves on. Well, that's what I had for you right now concerning the fuel prices. And right now we need to get back to studio with Joram Paul Sonko to take you through Smart Means business. But you can see how the situation is. There are so many people with so many different opinions why they think the fuel prices are increasing. And well, it's quite unfortunate that where I'm standing here, I'm not able to get in touch with someone that is going to be giving us the opinion as to what they think, why their opinions regard to the fuel prices, because it's not the first time this is happening, So you can see the situation. People are coming, they take the fuel. Actually, somebody was talking to a friend of mine and saying, looks like as time goes on, we shall be just getting bicycles to ride to get back to work. And this comes on with a whole new revolution of the electric bike that is taking place. So I'm going to have an interview with someone right here, and it's going to give us their opinion. According to them, what do they think is leading to the fuel prices to rise? So we need to find out exactly as I'm waiting here. Yes, because these are the people that they get so much affected when this price is high, and definitely when the prices go high, they charge the transport fares rise up so high, and is going to tell us what he thinks about why does he think the prices of fuel, what is his opinion why the fuel prices are rising so high. And right with me is a gentleman. We are going to have a brief conversation as is going to be taking us through. Sebo, jabaleko.
Kale sebo.
Amafuta buli lunaku galinnya. Gwe golowooza kiki ekireetera okuba nga tegakka buli kiseera gaba geeyongera kulinnya gwe nga okusinziira nga wolaba?
Ffe tetusobola kutegeera bizibu ki, naye tulaba buli saa amafuta galinnya. Bagamba oba Ukraine oba Russia, kati tetutegeera kiki. Naye gavumenti singa esobola tuyamba nekendezaako oba emisolo ebireeta bino tetumanyi, naye kendezeko tulabe ebintu bitambule bulungi, kubanga buli omu akaaba. Eyo yebizibu byetulina, kubanga ogezaako okukola buli kimu kisigala ku bbeeyi emu. Omusabaze omugamba bbeeyi zino, naye agamba bulijjo ntambula ku zino, naye nga tamanyi kiki amafuta galinnye. Eyo ebizibu byetulina.
Wakati abasabaze abamu kati bagamba batambula, kati mwe temulaba nti no bizinesi yammwe erina engeri gyenyigirizibwa?
Zinyigiriza ddala nnyo, kubanga ebintu tugezaako naye olabira ddala si bintu ya bulijjo.
Tegeeza abasabaze mubadde temukyafuna baweranga bululi?
Abasabaze nnaku zino oba batambula, abalala bakozesa taxi, abasinga batambula kubanga sente tezirabika.
Okay, that's how the situation is, that passengers right now, let me say the people that board vehicles, it could be a motorcycle, it could be a taxi that board to go and work right now, people are footing, and that means that the transportation business is being highly affected. Kati bako chogama government chemwagala abayambemu okulaba nga mudda mu business tetuganya amafuta gali waggulu, bubaka kiboyina eri government?
Ffe gavumenti yaffe bamanyi kyokukola, sobola gamba kola zino nabo bagimanyi, bakendezeko engeri y'ebintu, abantu balabe engeri y'okukola. bafuneko wadde omuntu asigala ssente ntono ng'abalansinga mpola awo.
All right, that's the situation on ground right now. As it's really very hectic for the people into the transportation business. They are stranded. They don't know what next. It's everywhere. The fuel prices, it's on everyone's talk, and this has really largely affected. We are trying to find out if we can get someone, and we discuss some matters around. It's not so busy a place, and business is moving on as usual. Every person just wakes up to go to work, and the biggest issue right here is the fuel prices. And well, like I told you, our neighbors, the countries that are neighboring us, their fuel subsidies. Recently Kenya spent some good billions of Kenyan shillings into the fuel subsidies, trying to make sure that there is a price the fuel dealers shouldn't exceed, so that people probably gets the money that those people could have made as profits, and they give it to them, but on condition that they reduce the prices for the normal person right there. Well, I think we are heading back to studio right now, or we could still find someone, and we try to discuss something, the fuel price, the fuel crisis that is becoming a global talk everywhere around the world. Yes, Russia invades Ukraine, and we are trying to find out, we're actually trying to find out more opinions. We see what people think about the fuel prices going high. Yes, and people are coming up, people are showing up too, to give us their their opinions. Okay, my producer, thank you for that, and I think I should sign out right now and get back to studio with Joram Paul Sonko to take you back with Smart Means Business as we keep driving your business. Thank you.
Drew from Kibuli. He has been live at Kibuli and around, I think, around the Samaika Kungulu school, and giving us highlights. He's only managed to talk to one of the border riders in there who have been giving their opinions in matters to do with the fuel prices and how they've affected them and what the government needs to do to address the same situation. Well, and speaking of which, as a matter of fact, is that the fuel prices are affecting most probably all of us and affecting the value chain in Uganda, and have been able to affect the transportation and the tax fares. Like I said yesterday, to my surprise, the tax fares have not been, to my surprise, have not increased. For example, the taxi fares, the bus fares, transport fares have been quite favorable for most probably everybody. And the situations is not very good in terms of the fuel prices. First and foremost, if I'm to break it down for you here, when Andrew was actually giving you the genesis of all these situations, in February we saw fuel shooting up to 6,000, 7,000. Other areas actually ran out of fuel. Then it eventually decreased back to 5,000, and it was around 5,000 to 5,200. Petrol was at 5,200. Then diesel at 5,100, around there. Then as time went by, in the month of May, prices started shooting up. Then we saw diesel outweighing petrol prices, or actually getting the same level of prices, and that is the time when we got to realize how this is going to be a very huge impact for most probably everyone. And you can still join more conversations on our Twitter that is actually having, and if we were to look at the situation that is actually coming in from the world of the fuel prices in Uganda, currently there are things that we need to know, and there are things that we need to at least adapt to. For example, I've come out to also realize in Uganda that most probably every other person is changing the way they're doing things. Most probably, if you've been, for example, you're used to driving every other day, driving a car, or you're used to putting in a full tank. Now, things are changing. I've got some discussions with relatives and friends who are telling me, this time around, you think of using your car on a daily, but then remember servicing, maintenance, fuel. And then you're like, naye nasobola okusasula bannaye nasobola obibeezaawo ewaka baagala ez'akameeza. And then Ugandan women have made life very difficult. Kati ez'akameeza baagala kakadde. So when you look at this image and try to look at the picture that the economy is actually facing, life becomes hard. So people have just chosen to, at least, if the journey is very, very crucial and important and you need to be there in time, you use your personal car. If all that fails, the boda is just a call away, or even a taxi. I give people examples that from Kajansi to town, it's 2,000 to 3,000 if you're using a taxi. And going back is 3,000. So Kajansi looks quite far, but if you use a taxi, the fares are still favorable. So that is why you could see in the current situation, if you are a person like me, you would say, okay, if I have my personal car, I'm not saying I have it now, but anyway, I'll get anyway. But if I have a personal car, I would still say, let me use the public transport, because it becomes easier. Someone has told me, it seems I have a transparent car. Anyway, let's get into the press review. And the press review here today, I have the Daily Monitor still with the New Vision. Oh, no, I have that every day. These things of telling you today I have this, yet it's what I keep on having. Okay. I think we are also going to have the smart vision on the streets of Kampala. Okay. Okay, now from the segment of business, we want to look at some of the key stories that are making headlines from here. Now, from a situation here, there is a page. There are 2 pages with the Daily Monitor showing the Uganda Wildlife Authority, which is marking a silver jubilee and committing to wildlife conservation. In here, there is the Executive Director, Sam Mwanda, who is giving his opinion on this particular matter, and it is actually an interview that they had with him and matters regarding that. The Daily Monitor has highlighted that government has earmarked 17 billion shillings to deslete River Nyamwamba, and that is 17 billion shillings. And there is also a picture of an excavator which is desilting River Nyamwamba, which was desilting River Nyamwamba yesterday. All that is with the Daily Monitor, and this clearly shows you how government is allocating different funds for more of that. Then also something to do with the education system. Someone here has, there is something to do with the letter of rethinking the selective pay rise for teachers. Remember, teachers have been on strike, most especially those from the arts sector, threatening to go on strike because they believe the government has not been favorable in terms of salary allocations, only looking at the science teachers. Then, in the segment of business, still, exports to Rwanda still low despite border reopening, according to the Daily Monitor here. Remember, the border was reopened after 3 years of the closure, the Gatuna. And that one was reopened, and there was high expectations that this time around exports would increase to Rwanda and money would be generated. But in between the lines here, Uganda's exports to Rwanda average at 826.2 million shillings. That is approximately 220 US dollars per month. And there is a sharp decline from 62.6 billion shillings, and then that is approximately $16.6 million monthly. That is a monthly average in 2019 alone. But that shows you that there is a decline, but we're waiting, and hopefully things may change by that time. And you never know, by the way. Things will change, and once these things change, we are good to go. Rwanda reopened the borders, and yes, lastly, with the Daily Monitor, cooking gas prices have risen by 30%. That is the price of cooking gas, which is also known as liquefied petroleum gas, which has increased by an average of 30%, according to a market survey. You know, someone told me that